And now here's part 2 of our episode. So say more. I like where we're going with sticking the landing, because I think that's a really you're also doing something, Eli. I see you doing it, where you're articulating your standards for perfection as we go along.
Yes,
it's very fun. So I love this thing about sticking the landing. Why does this song in particular stick it? What works about it?
I mean, first of all, it absolutely slaps and rules. And it's like, it's another one that makes me feel like I'm like 10 and I'm like, yes, music rules. Like guitars are awesome. And I'm a native not native California. I'm a Californian at heart. I'm an 11th generation Californian. I love like California, anything. So that, and then it's another one of like, man, this guy's like, there's a lot of anger there. I'm like, who are you talking to? Like, I've always like kind of wondered and have done no research on like whether this is the song like about like another musician like that he thinks is a hack or whatever. Like, is the what? That. Yeah, what? I don't know. That's like the story that I have in my head. Once again, done no research on. I think I'm just happy to have whatever stories I like. Happy to live in my own reality. I just think it's a cool song. And it also like there are all these like themes that have been kind of brought up throughout the album, like family anger, like the album starts off very Beach Boys-y, you know? So it feels like, oh, this is going to start off as like the California surf rock, hard rock, whatever, and it ends like kind of completing that circle. But then, and it might be cheating a little bit but on the CD that I would listen to, because there is a track after that, and when you look at it, which is also great, I'll be hating you for Christmas. But if I'm not wrong, I could be wrong about this, but on the CD and therefore on my iTunes, like to this day, forever, it was a secret track, and so it was just like there was like, I don't know, 5 minutes of silence or whatever. And then that track fades in like, and then like, thanks for the Christmas card. And it's like awesome. So it's like, you think that it's over, it ends perfectly. And then it kind of comes back with like another secret track that is also awesome and like angry and like about relationships and kind of brings up, once again, in my mind, talking about the same character or like his ex or whatever who he was talking to, and I will buy you a new life. Yeah, it feels complete.
Hell yeah. See, this is the hard part about albums existing in the streaming context, right? Because on Spotify, it's tracks 13 and 14, separate tracks. Yeah. It's like the California King and Hating You for Christmas separately. So you don't get that same effect of a bonus hidden track
exactly
that you did in the CD era.
Totally.
And we're poorer for it.
Honestly. We are. Kids don't know about secret. I feel like there was a thing in like the late 90s where it's like, no, don't stop it when the album ends. Like you have to keep listening. Like
yeah. It's kind of there's incentive to do it. There was big time incentive to do it at that time. Because even on the Wikipedia kind of like breakdown of the tracks, it says it contains the hidden track, right? So like it's within like a California King, which is it's way cooler.
Totally.
Is there, I mean, is it something about the anger throughout this album? Like, is that, I mean, if you had to sort of like, I don't know, pin a defining emotion or tone on the whole album, is that the thing that really speaks to you about it overall?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, and once again, also another thing I like about, not to give away another thing, aspect I think about what a perfect album is, but I think that it's so subjective and so personal. And I think that this album came out at a time, this album came out at a time when there was like a lot of change in like my family life and all this stuff. And I just thought it was like cool songs. And then when I like kind of revisited it in high school, I was like starting to feel a lot of feelings, including like anger, like, you know, my family, like my dad or whatever. And it felt like this album, I just related to it so hard. Of like, he's angry throughout. He's like, he has the same feelings that I'm having, but he's able to like scream it in a song where I felt like I have no outlet for, I have all these feelings, as I think a lot of like young people do. I have all these feelings and I don't know what to do with them. Like, And even just this morning when I was like listening to it on like I played it really loud on the speakers. Like I've been listening to it a lot like the last week.
Did I.
Yeah. But I played it really loud on the speakers and it just transports you back into this like, fuck, like, damn that, like, suck it, dad. Like that kind of thing.
It was very, we have not replicated the modern rock sound.
No.
There hasn't been like a replication of it yet, which is kind of cool. I like that it's still such a time capsule.
Yes. And I think that may put people, I don't know if you've never heard this album or if you are not between the ages of 30 and 40. And like, if you, I don't know, I honestly don't know if you would like, if a young person would come to this album and like, be like, yeah, that's great. I think maybe they would, but I have no clue. Like, I don't know what people like or whatever.
I mean, there's been a lot of comparison. This is going to be weird, but I promise this makes sense. There's been a lot of people who have said that Olivia Rodrigo is someone who, as whether it's intentionally or unintentionally, been sort of drawing from 90s modern rock in some way. I mean, like there have been some Alanis comparisons. I don't quite hear it, I'll be honest. But I think that, I don't know, if there were a pop artist today who is the closest to that vibe, it's her. 'Cause it's not Taylor.
That's true.
It's not Chappell, because she's doing something real different. But maybe Olivia Rodrigo is the closest we have.
And that would make sense kind of time wise too, because it's like this album obviously takes a lot of like influence from 60s and 70s, mostly 60s groups. And it feels like that's always like everyone's kind of looking about 20 or 30 years in their past for the stuff that they like, probably because it's like the stuff that they grew up, that their parents listened to or that they listened to growing up.
Yeah. Well, we also talked about Social Distortion a few seasons ago, which feels like they are cousins. It feels like they have to be like that cowpunk, that rockabilly kind of thing. It feels to me that the more we talk about it, like Everclear was the one that broke of those bands, like into really like mainstream popularity. Yeah. Whereas I feel like bands like Social Distortion and the ones that were like more properly part of that weird punk scene down here in Southern California, they maybe stayed more niche.
Yeah.
Everclear stuck their head above the water.
They're like, we'll take some money if you have it. Well, we wouldn't hate that.
Yeah, the more I learned about this guy, he's like a hustler. He is really like, you read about all the bands that he's been in and like the bands that he was in before. He was in the music industry for years before this ever started.
I do remember that being like a rumor that from my sister, like going like, no, he's like old. Like he's been around forever. He's like in his mid 40s or something like that.
It's a weird thing to see the video for Father of Mine too, because it's part of those knockoff Buddy Holly. Yeah, it's part of that era of videos that were just knockoffs of the Buddy Holly video. Yeah. But it's gratifying. The kid who played Beans is in it.
Really?
The Beans and Even Stevens. That's his name. I got it here.
I think his legal name is Beans.
Yeah, he legally changed it. No, it's Stephen Anthony Lawrence, otherwise known as Beans from Even Stevens.
If I could just have half the career that Beans has had, I think.
I know.
Yeah.
He's only 34. And that's so messed up.
That's great. Oh, good for him.
Well, you've been sprinkling these throughout the episode, so I'm not, but maybe you've got them on your whiteboard there. Like we asked you for a list of albums that you thought were perfect. We did not define that for you, so you had to come up with your own standards for perfection. So what are they, and how does this album meet that criteria?
Yeah, okay. I think that I have some contradictory stuff in there, and I will probably even contradict stuff I already said, but.
Great.
I think that it has to feel like a cohesive piece. Like it has to feel like there isn't a track in there that it has to feel purposefully put together, I think.
Yeah.
I think every track has to make sense with each other and has to be good, if not great. And there has to be like, oh my God, that song's so good. And also, I think this is maybe a bonus. Not everyone has to do this, but I think I always like when there are like textural notes. Like this album has it with like what Ataraxia, like just kind of like the commercial for like antidepressants.
Yeah.
There's El Distorto de Melodica, I think, which is an instrumental track that feels like it's a little bit out of place, but it doesn't feel out of place.
They got nominated for a Grammy for that one in specific.
Really? I didn't know that. I mean, that track is awesome. I in high school, I used it in like a video project of mine. Like we're probably like fighting with swords or something like that. And that track plays. And then like I said before, has to stick the landing. And I think also there is obviously a very personal aspect that I was talking about before, where you have to relate to it in some capacity. Yeah, I'm a big lyrics guy. Like I kind of always come out at songs with like lyrics first. I think that's just from growing up with the Beatles so much, where it was always like, well, did you know that, where my mom saying like, well, this song's about this person or whatever. Like, and I always also really liked, although this album is a little bit different. I think it was because it's a little bit more literal than like the Beatles are.
Yeah. Definitely.
It kind of like, it's saying like, hey, you did this and I don't like that. Or, you know, that famous song, you did this and I don't like that.
That old chestnut.
Yeah. But yeah, it is more personal about his life. And I don't know. So I guess that was a departure from like what I was used to growing up. I guess perfect is a different thing than what I'm talking. I guess there is a difference between favorite and perfect, because my favorite album is Pinkerton, but I don't even know if I would say that's a perfect album. But I think that in its imperfections, it's great. And that me talking about Pinkerton again. So I'm on this podcast, I'm trying to talk about everything else besides what we're actually talking about.
Listen, no problem with that. I mean, I want you to say just a little bit more about what the distinction is with Pinkerton, right? Because what would you say makes Pinkerton imperfect then, but maintains it as your favorite album?
Maybe you've caught me in like me just kind of talking out of my ass.
No, that's good.
Because but I think the thing that I like about Pinkerton is that it's not like perfectly produced like the Blue album is, where there is like it starts off with bang, 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 and it's like a little off key, and like I just remember, and I think at first I didn't like it because like it starts off with Rivers kind of going like, whoa, but then he kind of comes in a little bit off the beat, like on the second yell, and it like ends awkwardly. But I think that's the thing that makes it really unique and special and cool, is that it's like, it feels raw. It feels almost like they're improvising it, you know? And this album definitely has that rawness to it as well.
I don't hear this album as being as raw. Like, to me, it feels like, so there's this sort of thing that happens, right, with bands who, like, in the early 90s, they started out being kind of like edgy and grungy and punky, and then they get some sort of mainstream success.
Yeah.
And then they embrace that mainstream success. And so to me, considering the album that comes before it, this album sounds like it has a shine on it.
Totally.
I mean, do you agree or disagree? Or like, do you feel like they got even shinier, and so this is still when they're a little raw?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it is that. And maybe I'm using raw on the wrong term, where I think it's like emotionally raw. But you're right. Sparkle and Fade is a lot more. And that's probably why I like, because I do like a little bit of sparkle on stuff, you know? Like, yes, I do enjoy that. And I think, once again, it's very nostalgic to have like this kind of producery late 90s feel to it. I guess like, what I'm saying, like raw when compared to like, you know, the Blue album or something like that, those are like the albums that I listen to from this era, or even like back like Mellow Gold or Odelay or something. Like even those ones feel like a little bit cleaner than this, but you're right. And maybe it's just my tastes are coming out where I'm like, oh yeah, it's really raw, and that it's not. Yeah.
We kind of even talked about this with Smashing Pumpkins too, right? Where we said that Siamese Dream, or maybe Melancholy, was kind of like the last like really raw thing, and then everything just got a little bit shiny. Is Michael, am I remembering
a little shiny? Oh boy! Like after Melancholy, it's all shiny.
Yeah,
I think.
It's all shiny. Okay,
yeah. I thought that was kind of Smash Mouth. It's probably the same reason why I was going to do Astro Lounge, but I did think about doing, because the Smash Mouth's album before that was Fushu Mang, and it is like there. But then the big song from that was Walking on the Sun, which was like the shiniest one. But the rest of that album is kind of like a punk album.
Have we memorialized him yet? He passed. Didn't
R.I.P.
he?
I don't know if we did.
We should. Mr. Smash Mouth, Mr. Mouth to you.
Yes.
Mr. Mouth, Steve Harwell, lead vocalist from Smash Mouth, lost him, and he passed earlier this year. So that's a real sad one, especially when you like look back at how it sounds like things got really hard for him.
Yeah, totally.
Over the years.
All right, Eli, you've said your piece, you've made your case, and now it's time for.
I made about 5 or 6 other cases as well.
Yeah.
Yes. No, we took record of that. Now it's time for the adjudicators to do their job, and so now we have to come down and make a judgment on. Yep. Come down on you, make a I don't know, whatever. We're gonna done. There we go. I did the
deliberation period.
So Tyler, what are you thinking? What from Eli's case really sticks with you?
I think what's nice is that in a lot of ways, his case kind of mirrors the album itself in that it's not a joke. It's not a joke thing. This is a real, it's not ironic. This is actually one of his favorite albums. And this is actually,
Sorry to interrupt, but wouldn't it be so funny if before the album started, Art came on the mic, just so you know, this isn't a joke. I mean this shit.
This is real life
funny
people.
to me.
Yeah. I hope that he starts every show that way. And he's coming, him and Marcy Playground are going to be here next month in LA. And
damn.
Is $53 too much to see Everclear? I don't know.
Hey, I Smell Sex, and you're going to have a really good time at that concert.
I think so, dude. So it's this. I think what is compelling me about Eli's argument is the fact that it is not a joke, even though the band has maybe a meme quality to it in the way that we look back on it, right? So there's that. I think the description of like the origins of where this kind of musical taste come from are great because we don't know each other well enough that I would know that you grew up in that kind of environment. So that's like, that really adds a flavor to it. Yeah. And all of that. And the fact that these standards for perfection were so clear. I think things are looking pretty solid. What about you, Michael?
I mean, all those feelings and didn't know what to do with them. Like I feel like that's a regular thing we hear about people bonding with music in their teen years. Like, what do I do with all these feelings? Oh, this song can help me. Like, the song makes it all make sense. And so that for me, that was where it got locked in.
That's the core.
But
okay.
But he has my vote. But now it comes to you, Tyler.
Yeah,
Mr. Esselman.
Mm-hmm.
You've heard the case. You've listened to the album. You've done your research.
Mm-hmm.
Does Everclear's So Much for the Afterglow go to 11? Is it a perfect album per Eli's case?
I think I have to say yes.
Let's go! Let's go!
Let's go, baby! Never thought I'd say it, but yes. You have turned my head to this album. I'm very pleased that you made this case.
I am pleased that you guys have come around. I got to be honest, I was nervous because when you did start off going like, this is like you gave us some insane albums. I was like, oh, are they insane? I didn't know. But I'm glad that I could have a traumatic childhood enough to sway you guys. Yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely. It's all there. All the pieces, all the necessary pieces were there.
Before we go, Eli, Weezer.
Yes.
Saturday Night Live.
Yes.
Anything you can share with us about the genesis of that? I will say that someone.
I think we mentioned the sketch on our Weezer episode. Maybe we might have.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. There's someone in my life who desperately wants to know whether Leslie Jones actually knew all that information about Weezer and whether she listened to a bunch of albums before going into that. Can you shed any light on this?
I can. I'll say, just to answer the question, Leslie Jones knew nothing about Weezer.
God love her.
We had to definitely explain to her what the deal was. The origins of that, I have like when I was a writer at Saturday Night Live. You're just coming up with ideas all the time. Going like, maybe that'll work. I have it like a little. It's still in my notes app, but just like Leslie as Weezer super fan. And then, because I don't know, I don't remember when I wrote that down, probably in the middle of the night somewhere. I think that they were trying to like find some more stuff specifically for Leslie because she was like a big star at the show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Then my friend, okay, here's actually, I think this might be a scoop. I don't think I've said this. I talked about this sketch on a podcast or two before, but I don't think this might be this one goes to 11 exclusive.
But, nice. Ooh. All right.
It was actually intended for Jonah Hill, the Jonah Hill episode. My friend Stephen Castillo, who was like a frequent collaborator of mine at the show and still one of my best buds, he came into my office and was like, he had done a sketch about the movie Shrek, where it was like a dinner party and people were like screaming at each other. And he's like, I think something like that would be a good for Jonah Hill. And I was like, well, damn, you know what? I have this idea where Leslie Jones is like a Weezer super fan. And then we talked about it and it was like, well, okay, well, what if it's like a dinner party and Jonah Hill is like, I think Jonah Hill's like, I love all Weezer, and Leslie Jones is a quote unquote true Weezer fan and only likes Blue and Pinkerton. And then we're like, okay, that's funny. And then my office mate Alan Linick was in our office with us. We were all pitching jokes and we wrote it down. Kind of not expect like the whole time going like, well, they're not even going to read this, right? This is so stupid. But then also like just making each other laugh, cracking up so hard. Kind of the thing of like, we heard it today. I probably talked about Weezer more than I talked about.
Yeah, man.
Love Weezer. Okay, so we did that. It went really well at the table read, but I think that episode was just too jam packed. And then they did something that they hadn't done. They were just like, I got a text from the one of the producers saying like, just let us know when you want to bring it back. And I was like, okay, great. And then we're just looking at the schedule. And a couple weeks later, I was like, well, the Christmas episode is Matt Damon. And if we put some glasses on him, he'd look kind of like Rivers Cuomo. Yes. And so when you're reading, also, by the way, Jonah Hill killed it. He was like, yes, I am on board for this. Like he was so down. And I think
good for him.
Yeah, he was, because he knew everything. So it was like, we had to tell Leslie who Weezer is and who Rivers is, but we didn't have to explain a thing to.
That's so cool.
Yes. But Matt Damon, we did have to kind of like, because you go in and you kind of say, okay, so it's this sketch, it's about this. If you could say this line kind of like this, that would be helpful. And we're like, you're going to have to sing a little snippet of Beverly Hills, the Weezer song at the end of it. And he's like, okay, I think that's one of the only ones I know. So good.
Perfect.
Yes. And then that one like kind of took off on the internet, and that was really cool to see. And then just took, sorry for the long story.
Do it, dude. We want to know.
Yes. So then by the end of the night, I was seeing like friends were like texting me going like, first of all, everyone knew that I had written it in some capacity. They're like, there's no way that Eli wasn't involved in this sketch on SNL. Like, I
love that.
By the end of the night, like Rivers is tweeting about it. Matt Sharp is the original bass player, was tweeting about it. Lead singer of the Rentals. I also heavily considered Return of the Rentals for a perfect album. Not to get another one in there, but
fit them all in, yeah.
Yes. And so like Rolling Stone like interviewed Rivers Cuomo about it, like, and he was just like, yeah, it was crazy. Okay, so then that was like the last episode. Then we had like 3 weeks of Christmas vacation. I go home to California. I come back, and then like I'm about to get into my apartment back in New York, and I see like I had posted something about the sketch or something, and I see like a comment from the Weezer account saying like, did we just become best friends? P.S. Check your DMs. And I'm like, oh my God. And so I check my DMs, and that's Weezer saying like, hey man, we want to invite you guys to our show at Madison Square Garden. And I was like, oh my God. I call my friend like Amy Goodman, who was like my first big, like, you like Weezer too? Oh my God. Freaking out. And so we go, it happened to be on a week that we were off, that SNL was off. And so me, Steven, and Alan, we went to Madison Square Garden. We met up with their people. They were so nice. And then they're like, okay, once they start their encore, come backstage and we'll see if you guys can meet them. And I was like, okay. So we go backstage, but then it's also like right when we're going back, I think they started playing Buddy Holly, and I was like, and then like one of their people was like, you want to go side stage and watch? And I was like, yes, please. And so I got to and play Buddy Holly as like the final encore, like right up. It was awesome. And then we go backstage into like our little room, and they're just kind of there, and like they're like, hey, yeah, wow, thanks for writing that. And we were like, yeah, like thank you guys for inspiring me. You know, trying to. It was like a lot of stuff with that job. You know, of pretending like it's normal, like
right.
But it's just like
that.
Yeah, exactly. Like but it's Weezer. It's like
had you seen them before?
Had you ever seen them multiple times? Yeah,
you had. Okay.
But cool. But it was awesome. It was so cool. They were so nice.
That's great, man.
Yeah, Rivers was like very quiet, like just kind of off in his little thing. But since then, like sometimes they watch my Instagram stories, and like
there you go.
There was like a little
kind of relationship.
There was a talk pre-COVID about like maybe doing a little thing together, but that COVID hit and it didn't happen. But we have it better. Yeah. And the thing was, I was going to write their next album. I was going to be.
Oh, okay, good.
I'm going to play banjo on the Cayenne album. Yeah.
Dude, I mean, I didn't know that you would. When I saw the sketch, I didn't know that you had written it. Like, because again, we didn't know each other that well at that time. So when I found that out, I was like, "Holy shit!
Yeah,
this guy has a brain that actually that functions similarly to mine in a lot of ways." Yes. That's what the feeling was. Well, thank you for sharing all of that context, because that is that fills in so many gaps in what I had been thinking about. The effects of what a sketch like that could have done.
Yeah, it is crazy. I mean, like it is when you're at that job, especially, it's like you can kind of forget, like, oh yeah, this goes on TV and people watch it. Like, so we're just like in our own little worlds going like, oh, wouldn't it be so funny if, like, I don't know, you know, and then he says, drink my blood for no reason. And then it's also like, oh, how do we make this guy the biggest jackass in the world? It's
Damon killed it too. Like he was perfect. I think he ended up being
good.
Perfect for that.
Yeah, I think probably I mean, I don't want to say better or worse, but like I'm glad that it ended up being Matt Damon, because he was so in type and so like out of it too. And Leslie obviously destroys that. She's so funny in that. But I think that the real hero of that sketch, because it is so stupid and so odd, the real heroes in the sketch are like everybody else, especially like Cecily, because she's the first one that goes like, what are you guys talking about? And she did it so perfectly that it gave the audience permission to go like, oh, we're not supposed to know what the fuck they're talking about.
Yeah,
like,
that's a good point.
Weird that they're talking about this. And so that allows, if you watch it, there aren't like a ton of laughs up until then. And then, I mean, they're not a ton of laughs of the thing anyway.
Well, but I'll tell you what, we'll share the sketch in some form for people to catch up on, but only we'll share it after our commercial, the link for our commercial.
Perfect, exactly. Yes,
yeah,
perfect.
Yeah.
They can see
in order of importance,
and it all started from the wonderful people at Gildan.
It did.
Yeah.
Gildan and Michael
all
said
comes back to the tidy whities.
he pronounced it correctly. I told him that he was supposed to be Gildan and not Gildan. I remember that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Eli, what a delight. Thanks for hitting us back. Thanks for coming on.
My absolute pleasure.
Dude, and if you're ever out in LA or next time I'm in New York, I'll hit you up.
Please do. Yeah.
Would love to catch a show or something like that.
Yeah.
That'd be really fun. But this is our chance. If you have anything you want to plug, share it with the people and share it with the people that listen to this fine podcast.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you can follow me on Instagram at
do it. It's good stuff.
At Eli Coyote. I've been making sketches with my buddy Nick Mestad, who's also a former Chicago comedian. So you can find that at our pages or on TikTok at, I think, Nick and Eli Comedy. And that's been very fun. I do a monthly show in New York called The Horse Basement. I guess we're taking a minor. It's a every other monthly show during the summer, I guess. But yeah. So if you're in New York, come to that. You can follow me on Instagram to figure that stuff out too.
Hell yeah. Do it, people. Him and Nick are doing funny stuff. I like it. It's good shit.
Thanks.
It's good shit.
Yeah. And while you go to those social medias, y'all, if you haven't already, please make sure you rate and follow us on Spotify and Apple. Also subscribe to us on our YouTube channel. And of course, follow us on Facebook, if you're still ancient like me, and the Tickety Tocketies.
We're on there too.
Yeah.
Another great one. All right. We'll see you guys later. Bye.